Kodak's P3200 is an 800 ISO film that is designed with pushing in mind. P3200 is only available in 35mm, and Kodak recommends that you can shoot this film anywhere from 800 to 3200. Kodak recommends that you use their T-Max developer, which is going to yield finer grain and better shadow detail, but that is not a very common developer, so I used HC110. This film is part of the T-Max lineup, so it is a T-grain film, which normally means finer grain and a sharper image, but that doesn't really factor in with P3200. As you'll see in the results, it doesn't quite look the same as the other T-grain films. The three things I'll be looking at when discussing this film are shadow detail, grain, and sharpness. The last time I was at the car museum, I used Tri-X 400, and I rated it at 400. I didn't want to push the film, and I pretty much had no flexibility with my shots. I had to shoot the lens wide open at 2.8, and the only shutter speeds I was getting was like 1/30th or 1/60th of a second. I wanted to try P3200 in the same place to be able to stop down the lens a little bit more and get the shadow detail that I wanted. So all of these shots I rated at 1600, and I used HC110 dilution B. I was aiming for around an f4 aperture, and at that aperture I was getting about 1/125th of a second, and that was perfect for the amount of shadow detail that I wanted. I wanted to keep the detail in the tires. I didn't want them to go full black, so I was aiming for a zone 3 on the tires. And there's plenty of detail here. I do like that you're able to see the detail in the tires, and there's plenty of detail in the shadow underneath the car. One thing I want to point out though is that although there is better shadow detail, you can see into the shadows more, there's so much grain that I feel like it obscures the shadow detail quite a bit. Here's another example, and this one's of a black car, and I think this is a good example of the shadow detail that it's able to capture, because although the car is black, you can see all the detail of the car, and you can see the detail in the tires, and even the shadow underneath the car, it's not full black. There is a little bit of tonality there. Although the increased shadow detail is nice, it is hard for me not to look past the grain. The grain is extremely intense in this film. It is all over the place, it is large. And this is what I was referring to when I said this film doesn't look like the other T-Max films. T-grain films are usually fine grain, and this film the grain is turned up to 11. There's no subtlety in it at all. I tried to get some sharp shots, but I feel like the grain level of this film totally deteriorates any sharpness that the film has. I feel like in any of the shots, you can't really see the sharpness. The grain is just in the way. Another thing that I wanted to point out was that the T-grain films don't handle highlights as well as conventional grain films, and it's very apparent in this film. The highlight gradation is terrible, and the highlights pretty much have no chance. They just block up and they're like fully dense. Personally, I didn't really like this film. It's way too grainy. The image quality, in my opinion, is not very good. I like to see detail in my images, and this just ruins the detail, in my opinion. I don't think it's completely impossible to like this film. Like, for example, I got this shot and I was pretty happy with this one, but just overall, it wasn't really working for me. I've heard some people say that they like that it gives like a charcoal, like illustrated quality, and I could kind of see that. If that's what you're into, that's pretty cool, but it's not for me, it's not my taste, and I'm curious, have you guys ever shot P3200, and what did you think of it? Let me know in the comments, and we'll see you guys next time on The Negative.